guys, I'm Sophia-Helene, and today I want to talk to you about pragmatics. So what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes, unless you're driving. If you're driving or you're otherwise occupied or you're just listening to my voice, A, gross, B, don't close your eyes. But you are going to miss a lot of things in this video if you're not actually able to watch it. So do come back when you're not otherwise occupied and rewatch the video. But anyway, really focus and see if you can get a clear idea in your mind what pragmatics means. Good, you're wrong. So I'm not going to get all prescriptivist on you, and I'll just point out that there is a difference between pragmatism and pragmatics. Pragmatics is a branch of linguistics that focuses on such matters as deixis, taking turns in conversation, text organization, presupposition, and implicature. So all of those words have meanings, and most of them are fairly transparent. Except that. What the f*** is that even? Well, let's talk about deixis is characterized as a subcategory of the semiotic concept of indexicality. Believe it or not, that is a sentence whose every word makes sense, and in that order. Science! Speaking of, you could accurately consider deixis to be like the relativity of language. And I can demonstrate this using two very brief, very similar, but wildly different discourses. I need you to go there. I need you to go there. Functionally, to wit, semantically, these discourses are identical. They're also meaningless without clarification. This lack of clarity is the central problem of deixis, and this problem revolves around one specific word. And I can demonstrate that by adding a third discourse and comparing it against the first. I need you to go there. I need you to go. Semantically, these two discourses are complete. However, we're unable to act on the imperative of the former because we don't know where there is. The word there is also semantically complete, but crucially, it lacks denotational meaning. Its denotational meaning cannot be known without context. So that's very messy and all very interesting. So I guess to kind of drill down into an actual definition, deixis or deictic words are those which indicate a direction relative to a frame of reference that cannot be known except through related context within the same discourse. Now, let's take a look at those two original discourses, but this time we're going to add a little bit of context. I need you to go there. I need you to go there. Okay, well that satisfies the basic imperative of the discourses. We know that in the case of the former, we're meant to go to New York City, and in the case of the latter, we're meant to go to this building. But that, in itself, is incomplete. Now, throughout, I've referred to these as discourses and implied that what we're doing here is discourse analysis. That's actually a little bit problematic because in linguistics, the term discourse has a specific meaning, and I appear to be flaunting that meaning and calling this a discourse. This is a discourse, for sure, unquestionably. But this? I don't know. Discourse is defined as a unit of communicative speech, longer than one sentence. More broadly, discourse is the use of written or spoken communication within a social context. I only said one sentence there. Or did I? In 2012, Dr. Richard Janney of Ludwig Maximilians University of Munich published an article in which he argued that cinema is actually a type of discourse, and thus is ripe for pragmatic analysis. Cinematic discourse, as defined here, is not language in use in film, dramatic dialogue, fictional conversation, scripted interaction, but the audiovisual discourse of film narration itself, the discourse of mise-en-scène, cinematography, montage, and sound design used by filmmakers in narrating cinematic stories. Now, this may hit the ear as very auteur, but actually all it's saying is that the discourse, in this case film or television, says something to you. And the message is in the interpretation and not the intent. What you say, what you do, what you mean by it doesn't matter because it's interpreted by an entire world of observers who may not share or comprehend your specific intent. It's actually a very death of the author kind of way to look at analysis, which is good because when I first read this, I was terrified that it was going to come down hard on the side of auteur theory, which I hate because who really wants a peek into Michael Bay's soul? But also, if there's one correct interpretation, that means there are infinity minus one ways to be wrong, and I'm not sure if I've made this clear. I don't like being wrong. Right, so let's go back to this quote and look at some of the words in it. Specifically, mise-en-scène. What? The actual swinging, licking, damn is mise-en-scène. It's just the arrangement of scenery, props, costumes, lighting, and performance. So I left dangling the idea that these discourses may or may not be discourses. So here we're going to indulge Dr. Janney a little bit and add a little bit of mise-en-scène to the discourses from earlier. I need you to go here. I need you to go there. Okay, now we've built up some wildly different discourses, and I've never felt so disgusting in my entire life. Seriously, how do CVP and ICE officers sleep at night? Now we know in each scenario approximately who the speaker is, approximately who the intended audience is, approximately what they want us to do, and through presupposition and implicature, approximately why. We have said a lot more in this one sentence than just one sentence. In other words, this is a very basic one scene discourse. In fact, the entire cinematic amalgam could be considered one single, albeit highly multimodal, communique. Oh hey, that reminds me. How strong is the implicature link between two discourses? And for that matter, how far forward, or in fact backwards, in a discourse can you use the word it to refer to something and be understood? Related to the concept of deixis and implicature is the concept of exophora and endophora. Endophora are linguistic elements that refer to something within the same text. So that's a pretty simple and clean definition, right? Simple and clean is the way that you're making me feel tonight. Well, hang on, because it gets slightly more complicated. They come in two different varieties, anaphors and cataphors. An anaphor refers to an antecedent linguistic element. So for example, I once did a backflip at a party, but nobody saw it. It, in this case, is an anaphor for the backflip that I did. So it relates backwards in the sentence and to an antecedent element. Whereas a cataphor refers to something postcedent to it. So for example, when he got home, John went to bed. The cataphor he is denoted by the postcedent denotational unit John. So both of these terms have equivalents in cinematic discourse, and let me just go ahead and say that everybody hates when exophores are used in cinematic discourse. Except for Shrek. Everybody loved that. I didn't get it. I didn't like it. But I'm also a joyless scold, so that makes sense. Endophores are related to the concept of planting and payoff. Now, I could tell you quite a bit about planting and payoff, but if you've only got however long this video ends up being of this kind of nonsense in your day, then A, thanks for choosing my nonsense, and B, planting and payoff is a cinematic tool wherein a tension or a source of tension is planted early into the story, or early into, in this case, a discourse, and it is unimportant to the main plot at the time, but it introduces a tension which is brought up again and then finally resolved later. Now this is typically used to resolve a secondary conflict, not the primary. Everybody hates it when the primary conflict of a movie is solved by some meaningless bullshit that was planted in the first act. Seriously, Lindsay Ellis's videos on the subject are seminal, and if you're not subscribed to her, you're doing YouTube wrong. But also, a really good video on planting and payoff is available from Dan Olson over Folding Ideas, who is also a great follow. They're both far more capable in terms of cinematic, film criticism than I am. I'm a linguist. I'm not a film critic. This is a very common device that'll come up from time to time. In almost every movie has a few of these. And oh boy, it is exactly one of the most frustrating and actually relatively few criticisms that I have of Star Wars: The Last Jedi, or actually more broadly the entire new trilogy. They have cut so many planting sequences and left them on the cutting room floor that we end up staring into the pores of characters that we do not care about, that we, the audience, do not know them. Who is that? I happen to know the answer, but the point stands. Who's that? Again, I happen to know the answer, but that's because I'm a gigantic dork. By the way, that one, she was really hard to find. And also, while we're talking about it, let me just say, all the way off with your criticisms of Vice Admiral Holdo's not telling Poe about her strategy. Poe, he was demoted by Leia for disobeying orders, leading to the loss of massive amounts of probably irreplaceable war material for the Resistance. A fact which Holdo then refers to when she calls him captain and basically tells him to bugger off and mind the chain of command. And oh my god, it's planting and payoff. Now, there's way more to this concept, and it kind of relates to the idea, the concept of Chekhov's gun, but you could honestly do an entire video on it, and that video has already been done several times by people who, again, are way more qualified to talk about it than I am. So I recently became aware of the linguistics lens through which you can view film and consider them dialogues. It always made sense to me, and in fact I've gotten in trouble in several linguistics classes for doing more criticism of the context than of the linguistic block, the discourse, the words on the page. And so, I was very happy to see that there was space inside linguistics for analysis of film beyond just blah, 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 blah. Here are some words. Here how those words relate to each other. There is a space for film analysis, for lack of a better term, criticism. Also, since I said that I wanted to do film and TV criticism, I wanted to give you guys kind of a baseline view of, how I'm going to be approaching analysis of film and TV on this channel in the future, and also want to explain to you why I felt comfortable combining those analyses in with all the other videos that I intend to do on this channel, so you understand why you're going to see titles like Life, Love, and Linguistics, Why Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a drag, or, another title. Literally any other title. Anyway, I want to say a special thank you to my patrons on Patreon. Gosh, you guys are great. All patrons have, all patrons starting at the $1 level have early access to behind the scenes stuff, blooper reels, although that sort of stuff is a little light right now because I'm doing this solo. There's not a lot of stuff going on, and it would be kind of like manufactured in a certain sense. But also there is a live stream that I'm going to start up doing once a month that all patrons starting at the $1 a month level have access to. And for the next 3 videos after this one, all patrons are going to have 24-hour early access to the video. So this is coming out on Friday. My patrons had access to this video on Thursday. And then after the next 3 videos, that perk is going to only be available to patrons at the $5 a month level or greater. Anyway, please like and subscribe, leave a comment, and hit that bell. And also, if you feel so moved, the show could really use your help at patreon.com/shmace. You know what? Don't worry about it. It's in the description. Anyway, love you guys.